My sister, female 30, is obsessed with my female 31 boyfriend, male 37. I'll start by saying that I love my sister very much, even though we have never been very close. Something that's always caused tension between us is that she can be quite a jealous and insecure person. It is always comparing herself and her life to others, particularly me. She has in the past frequently expressed jealousy over my appearance, weight, career, friends, travels, etc. But the one aspect of our lives that she's always felt superior to me over is our love lives. I have had really bad luck when it comes to love. I had one relationship that was physically, emotionally, and sexually abusive, and as a result, dating has been quite hard for me. And I have a difficult time trusting men. I was single for years. Meanwhile, she had been with the same guy for 8 years and was always talking about how great and stable he was, all the gifts he would give her, etc. Then in 2017, I met my partner. We instantly connected on a level I'd never experienced before. And after many months of being just friends and getting closer and closer in the name of platonic friendship, we eventually told each other how we really felt and began dating. I cannot express enough how much I love this man. He makes me feel adored, safe, supported, and appreciated. He's witty and smart and hilarious, and gentle and sexy. We moved in together in 2019 and life has been blissful. Also, in 2019, my sister felt pregnant. Her partner told her he was getting ready to propose. However, about 5 months after the birth of my niece, he decided he didn't want to be with my sister anymore and left. This was very traumatic for my sister, especially since this was around the time COVID was kicking off and lockdowns were being announced, and all of a sudden she was facing being a single mom. Thankfully, she lived close to my parents and was able to form a bubble with her household, so she had their support. And when lockdowns eased, my boyfriend and I would help out whenever we could. It's been incredible watching my niece, female 3, grow up, and it's been lovely watching my boyfriend to be so good with her. He has 4 nephews, so he knows how to be a fun uncle, play with kids and talk to them, etc. This is where the weirdness started. It began with my sister making constant comments about how good my boyfriend is with kids. I would agree with her, but then she'd make digs about how it's such a shame he's with someone who wants to be child-free, aka me, and it's such a waste of a good man, that he was born to be a dad, etc. Soon, she would start sighing about how my boyfriend is perfect and how she needs to find another him. Again, I would agree because in my opinion, he really is the perfect package, and I would love for my sister to find someone as great as him. But it soon became evident she doesn't want someone like him. She just wants him. She began saying he was the main male figure in her daughter's life, and that he was the closest thing my niece had to a father. When my niece started talking and familiarizing herself with our roles, he would call him uncle, but then all of a sudden she started calling him daddy. I would always gently correct her and say, "No, darling, that's your uncle." But one time my sister heard this and she yelled at me for correcting her daughter and said I need to leave it alone, that it doesn't matter if she calls my boyfriend daddy. This is when I got really uncomfortable and put my foot down and told her she needed to stop confusing her daughter and stop allowing her to think my boyfriend is her daddy. I feel like my sister knows that letting my niece call my boyfriend daddy is only going to confuse her, but I also feel like she doesn't care because she likes to pretend my boyfriend is the daddy. After that fight, things got quite tense between us and my sister started snapping at me over everything I did, while still mooning over my partner and telling him how amazing he is. A few times my partner had to stick up for me and tell my sister not to speak to me like that in our house, which always bruised her. Things hit a boiling point last weekend. She asked us to babysit my niece for a couple of hours while she gets her hair trimmed. This wasn't ideal, as my boyfriend was doing something that required a lot of concentration and quiet that morning. Plus, we had an engagement later that afternoon. So I reluctantly agreed but explained to my sister that we needed to leave at a certain time, so she really had to be back by then. My sister is very disrespectful of other people's time and has no regard for other people's lives. It's always all about her. I took my niece to the park to let my boyfriend have some peace and quiet. We played for a while, then sat and had a coffee and baby chino at my local cafe before eventually returning home. I expected my sister to be returning soon too as agreed, but she was a no-show. Time is ticking. My boyfriend and I really need to get going. I'm ringing my sister and she's not answering. I'm stressed. Then all of a sudden she turns up 40-odd minutes late. I'm angry, but I don't even have the time to get into it with her, so I just start to say goodbye to my niece. That's when my sister noticed what she insisted was mold on my niece's shoes. She asked or yelled at me if I let her walk in puddles. I said she may have accidentally stepped in a puddle while at a park, but she wasn't jumping in them. My sister then started ranting like a lunatic at me, that I was not to let her go in puddles without gumboots, and that because of my thoughtlessness the shoes are now moldy. I said that's not how mold works. It doesn't grow after 3 hours. It can't be mold. Or if it is mold, it isn't there because of me. Mold does not grow in 3 hours. But my sister can't be told. She screamed at me, called me thoughtless and an idiot with no common sense or maternal instincts. I stepped outside during this argument and told her she was acting appallingly in front of her daughter. That's when she closed the back door on me and locked it, locking me out of my house. My house. I banged and demanded she unlock the door, and she said, "Not until you calm down did I feel it safe for you to be around my daughter." I was so disgusted at her audacity. How dare she lock me out of my own home? I went around to the front door, but she had locked that too. Luckily, I had my phone in my pocket, so I rang my boyfriend and told him to let me in because she had locked me out of the house. He was upstairs and had no idea any of this had happened. When he opened the door for me, I have never seen him look so angry in my life. He was furious, but he kept his cool and calmly but firmly told my sister to get out, that he was sick of her being so disrespectful to me when I bent over backwards trying to help her, and that she was no longer welcome under his roof until she apologized to me. She scoffed and said, "That's never going to happen." Then she left. It's been a few days, and since then she has been blowing up my boyfriend's phones with texts. He's shown them all to me. In them, she apologizes to him, not to me though, saying she's stressed out being a single mom, and that she gets no support from her family, and that the only support she has is him. My boyfriend replied saying that the only time he is around her or my niece is when I'm there too. So her saying that is proof that she does not appreciate or see the amount of support I give her. My sister replied saying it's not the same because I'm not a maternal person and would never be a good mother, so I don't get it like he does. Then she sent message after message, each more insane and inappropriate than the last, saying she wishes he was my niece's father, that he's everything she's ever wanted in a man, that they would make such a good team, that she's more compatible for him than I am, and that it breaks her heart every day she sees him wasting his life with me. There were also texts where she talked about how great he looks and smells. My boyfriend replied with, "This is not appropriate nor appreciated. I'm not comfortable receiving these messages, and ask you please not contact me again until you have resolved things with Opie." Then he blocked her. I'm just at a loss on where to go from here. I love my niece so much and want to be in her life. I'm worried about my sister. I can see she's struggling, and I want to help her, but this situation has become so toxic. Nothing I do is good enough. I'm tired of being screamed at for everything I do wrong and being told I don't have good maternal instincts, when others who have seen me with my niece tell me I'm doing a great job. I may not want to be a mother, but I do want to be an aunt, and it hurts my feelings to have everything I try to do for my sister gets dismissed. Then there's my sister's feelings towards my boyfriend, which at this point feels like a freaking obsession. I feel like both he and I have been disrespected hugely by her. How do we navigate that? I genuinely have no idea what to do, and it hurts my heart. Please help. Now for the top advice. Holy smokes, this is mad. Like, it's basically the plot of one of those Lifetime movies where your sister slowly transforms herself into your doppelganger and tries to literally replace you. Super goddamn creepy. Very glad to hear your partner has her back on this. Honestly, I don't even know if there's any advice to give here if she's resistant to therapy, etc. and thinks she's done nothing wrong. She almost certainly has some kind of personality disorder going on given how she's acted. The best thing you can probably do is keep an eye out for your niece even from a distance. If the only parent she has is this unstable, it's pretty likely she won't have the greatest home life once she starts having her own ideas and opinions. You could think about insisting on family counseling with your sister as a prerequisite for you, or your partner spending any more time with her or your niece. If there's a chance, it might improve things. But honestly, I don't think your sister will be happy until she feels like she's better than you again, which probably means her getting into another relationship. It sucks that you may have to miss out on time with your niece as a result of this, but her behavior is just so utterly insane. I'm not sure there's anything else you can do except avoid her. I genuinely think she has a personality disorder too. I've thought this since we were teenagers, to be honest, but the past few years are the worst it's ever been. She always thinks she's the victim, and that everything she does and thinks is correct. It's always black and white with her, and she's never wrong. In one of her texts to my boyfriend, she told him I was not allowed around her daughter until I apologized to her, and take accountability for the mold on the shoes that miraculously grew in a couple of hours. She actually walked away from that day thinking she was owed the apology. It's maddening. For a while, I've assumed that her crush on my boyfriend would go away once she found someone else. But she's currently in some sort of weird situationship with an older man. Sounds like a sugar daddy situation, to be honest. And it hasn't helped at all. Sadly, I think avoiding her completely is the only thing to do at the moment. But it makes me so sad and really worried for my niece. Now for the last story. My friend who has chased married men before may now be into my husband. Plus update. Original post. When my friend first got together with her ex-husband, she was in a serious relationship with her then boyfriend, and he was married with kids. Long story short, they both left their relationship and had a shotgun wedding. 3 kids later, he left her to move to another state. Surprise! The ex-boyfriend she cheated on is now married. And guess what? One day, she saw him online, so she texted to me and said maybe it's a sign from the universe that she should talk to him. She asked me if he is happy in his marriage. I told her he seems happy and she should stay away. Apparently, she wasn't happy with my answer, so she asked my husband the same question. Again, my husband told her the ex is very happy. Recently, she has been bombarding my husband with random messages of spirituality. She got into it during her divorce. She would send him paragraphs and paragraphs of random thoughts, even though sometimes he would go on days without replying her. When he does, it would be a simple, "I'm busy with kids," or even a swear word. And then she would go again. She somehow figured out my husband's birthday and asked him why we never celebrated that. It's private and my husband never celebrates it with friends. And texted him to question him on what he has against weddings and then gave him reasons why weddings are great. We had a small wedding and she wasn't invited, so maybe she thinks that we didn't have one? My husband did not respond to that question. One day, she texted me to see how I am doing in my marriage. I told her it's not as romantic as before, which is fine because we are focusing on kids. Then she mentioned how she is fine by herself and said I can find someone else romantic too. I tried to dismiss it like it was a ridiculous joke, but she just wouldn't drop it. The next day, she tried to bring it up again. My husband and I were going to move, and she asked me if that's what I wanted. I could sense that she was trying to make me doubt my husband again. And luckily for her, that was actually my idea. In the days that followed, she sensed something was wrong, and even tried to explain herself and how it is not in her place to suggest I leave my husband. She said how she was actually talking to a guy and explicitly say that it was not my husband, as if that would exonerate her, a known two-timer. Then she said she would not bother my husband again. But then she didn't stop. She's now sending my husband paragraphs and paragraphs of thoughts again like before. My husband responds to her sometimes because he thinks that she needs someone to talk to. They also sometimes exchange investment ideas because it's their common interest. He is worried about her mental state and that if no one talks to her, she would harm herself. My husband knew my friend long before we were together, so I didn't mind their independent friendship. But I suspect now that she's pursuing something more. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Your friend is a freaking wacko. I really need to hear this. So I'm not a crazy one. The fact that you are still friends with this person. What can I do? Unfriend her? She's unstable and trying to cause issues in your family. This really isn't hard. When my friend first got together with her ex-husband, she was in a serious relationship with her then boyfriend and he was married with kids. Long story short, they both left their relationship and had a shotgun wedding. 3 kids later, he left her to move to another state. Curious why you chose to remain friends with someone like this. From everything I know, female homewreckers are really fun to hang out with, in much the same way male homewreckers are. They tend to be the life of the party. They tend to be very gregarious and outgoing. They tend to tell the best jokes. They have very magnetic personalities. They tend to be emotionally intelligent and, well, seductive. It is part of what makes them so dangerous. They are so much fun that their cheating behavior aimed at others outside their friend group can all be forgiven, right up until you stop and realize, what if he ever turned up the charm around my girlfriend/wife? Or what if she ever turned her wiles upon my boyfriend/husband? This is a great description of what it's like to be friends with someone who ends up like that. Holy smokes. It's not so simple. We have at least 20 mutual friends and I'm bound to bump into her at some gathering. Also, keep your friends close and enemies closer. She can still keep friending my husband. What kind of friends are these that you can't talk to them about her antics and just have everyone kick her from the group? If they don't care about it and prefers not making waves, then it's time to make a choice. Either continue hanging out with your friend group and risk your marriage and family to tolerate her, or gradually distance yourself from everyone and focus more on your family. You can always make new friends. Why isn't your husband blocking her? They have no reason to text each other. Like I said, she's going through a divorce and my husband worries that she would harm herself if he completely blocks her. Your husband isn't her therapist. She should not be emotionally relying on him. He needs to set boundaries, especially if it's making you uncomfortable. And now for the update. Thank you all for those who replied. At first, I thought I was paranoid for thinking that my friend is out of line. However, not one single person says that it is platonic, or that she's going through a divorce, so cut her some slack. The answer was so simple. We needed to cut her out of our lives. I confronted her yesterday, and she dared to reply back and said how those spiritual messages were supposed to help my husband treat me better. She made it sound like she had no one to talk to besides him, while there were at least 10 other women from our group including me. I told her that she needs to see a therapist, that he is not her therapist, and she said she will talk to herself and she can be her own therapist. I have had enough and sent her one final message. You need to understand that there are boundaries with married men, and your past behavior indicated otherwise. Let me be clear, there is no place for you in my marriage. I thought it was good enough to keep her at arm's length, but my sisters told me no after reading this post. Both my husband and I were so blind. My husband has very low opinion of her and she is no threat to my marriage. However, she can still drive us apart. I am a working mom and have no time to monitor the situation. So, we both blocked her. It's over and I am so relieved. It's been like 6 months. I really thought the ex-friend would escalate after being blocked. Lol. Sounds like they moved. So maybe that's why. Or, she moved on to some other married man. I probably would have reassessed my relationship with a friend the first time she chased after a married man if I was OP. When you hang around someone who makes a habit of cheating and destroying relationships, you shouldn't be too surprised when they set their sights on your relationship. On a related thought, anyone else think the friend is mentally ill? Her behavior seems a bit erratic. She seems a bit too comfortable lying and manipulating, and a comment about how she'll be her own therapist set off alarm bells for me. Same. We can disagree on many views, but cheating is one of the bare minimum standards for ethics. I can't stand people who say, I don't have an obligation to the spouse/significant other of my affair partner. They're the one cheating. Listen here, a-hole. Trash and garbage are synonyms. I could never be friends with people who go after married men/women. I had a coworker like that once. You know what happened? The ex-husband of one of the women he slept with sent him to the hospital for 3 months. Good that Opie and her husband blocked her out of their lives. Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my wife's family a large portion of her life insurance money? I lost my wife unexpectedly and it has been one of the most difficult times in my life. She left me with $200,000 in life insurance, and I used $20,000 of it to cover the funeral expenses. My wife's family is demanding a large portion of the remaining life insurance money. Her parents want to use it to rebuild their home in Florida that was destroyed in a recent hurricane. The thing is, they didn't have insurance, and I don't think it's fair for me to cover their losses with the money that my wife left me. My wife's brother also wants a portion of the money to pay for his college tuition. While I sympathize with his situation, I don't think it's my responsibility to fund his education. My wife left this money to me for a reason, and it's up to me to decide how to use it. When I told my wife's family that I couldn't give them the money they were asking for, they accused me of being selfish and not caring about their situation. They said that my wife would have wanted them to have the money and that I was going against her wishes. I feel terrible for my wife's family, but I also have my own financial responsibilities. I have bills to pay, and I want to make sure that I can take care of myself in the future. I don't want to put myself in a difficult financial situation by giving away a large portion of the life insurance money. This is an opportunity for me to pay off my debts and buy the dream home me and my wife always wanted. Maybe I am being selfish, but I feel like I am not in the wrong. Me and my wife never really discussed what to do with life insurance money, other than the occasional joke of buying the dream home we want or a starter one. I miss her so terribly. Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my wife's family a large portion of her life insurance money? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Death and money can bring out the worst in people. I'm sorry for your loss. I can't say it better than this. Not the a-hole. It's selfish of them to put you through this. Perfect add-on. Look, if your wife wanted her parents and brother money, she would have left them money. She did not, because she wanted you to have it. You paid for her whole funeral. None of them did. Sorry for your loss. But this is your money. Shame on them trying to guilt you. Also, everyone in Florida knows to have homeowners insurance. That is their fault. Not the a-hole. She left you with the money, not them. If she wanted them to have some of it, she should have put it in a will or agreement of some sort to divide the money amongst her chosen parties. Yes, every life insurance policy I've ever had multiple places for beneficiaries, with what percentage you want to go to each party. 1. If you live in Florida and don't have a hurricane insurance, you're not smart. 2. It is absolutely not your responsibility to fund your brother's education. 3. What your wife would or would not have wanted is irrelevant unless there's a will involved. Otherwise, you knew her best, and them using her memory to guilt trip you is freaking disgusting. I would be livid. 4. It's your money to do whatever you want to do with it. Period. You do what you need to do to make your life easier or better while you grieve your wife however you need to. If needed, block contact to the rest of them until they can mind their own financial business. I am so sorry for your loss. I'm married, and I can't even imagine. There aren't words. It's absolutely disgusting to me that her family and yours are acting like nothing better than vultures in the wake of your loss, when they should be supporting you. Utterly reprehensible and selfish. Not a-hole by any stretch of the imagination. 2.5. It was not your late wife's responsibility to fund her brother's education either. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not sharing my inheritance with my sister since she chose to be adopted? I, 30 male, lost my mom when I was 5. Despite being so young, I had a very vivid and treasured memories of my mom and did not take to my dad dating a year after her death well. My dad recognized that he knew this would be hard for me, but said that as the parent/adult he knew what was best. Even it didn't seem that way at first, and that it thanked me in the long run. Not long after that, he married my stepmom Lucy, and when I began to act out over it, my dad said that parenting alone was hard, and that my sister Jessica, 28 female, needed a mom. My dad even got my maternal grandparents to tell me that everything would be fine, and how I needed to be a good boy. That was enough to get me to behave during the wedding, but once Lucy moved in and started redecorating, I started acting out again. My dad had had enough, and just started punishing me whenever I acted out or made Lucy upset, as well as used the "Jessica isn't acting out like this" line. And to be honest, Jessica was easily pleased, and wasn't alive long enough to have the same attachment to our mom as I did. It really upset me when Jessica started calling Lucy Mom, and it really ticked me off when Lucy started referring to me as her son, though I always corrected it when she tried that around me. It got worse when I was 8 and Lucy had her own kids, because then my dad and her started pushing for adoption. Jessica obviously had no problems with it, but I refused. My dad had my maternal grandparents come in again and tell me that adoption wouldn't be that bad, but I still refused. Lucy and my dad pushed for the adoption anyway, but thankfully the judge listened to my feelings in private room and denied it. After that, therapy started, but it didn't last, so they also tried the "since you don't want to be a part of this family, you don't get X or you can't come do Y." But I was too stubborn for that method to work on me. The only one who I felt was on my side was my paternal aunt, who kept sticking up for me whenever she'd see what Lucy and my dad were trying to do. So when I turned 18, I went straight to her. It was when I became a legal adult that my maternal grandparents confessed that they were never okay with the situation. But my dad threatened to keep me and my sister away if they didn't show support. I was furious. So furious that I had my surname legally changed to my mom's maiden name, as I wanted nothing to do with my dad. I'd only ever really talked to my paternal aunt. Fast forward to now, and my grandma has passed away while grandpa died in 2020. And according to their will, only their legal grandchildren is to split a $250,000 inheritance. And since Jessica is legally Lucy's daughter now, all she got was a framed photo of my mom and a letter. Jessica doesn't think it's fair and thinks I should share, but I told her to get money from her legal grandparents. Now, even my aunt thinks I'm being a bit harsh. So, am I the a-hole? Edited to add, because someone asked. It had been 2 years since the last time she'd spoken to either of my grandparents, while she frequently called and interacted with Lucy's parents. Jessica was never close to my mom's side of the family because she'd rather spend time with Lucy's family and/or didn't want to hurt their feelings. When Lucy moved in, she and my dad took down all of my mom's pictures and got rid of her things. I wasn't even allowed to keep any pictures in my room, and I would catch heat if I tried to celebrate my mom's birthday, mourn on the anniversary for death, and get punished if I didn't celebrate Mother's Day the way Lucy wanted me to. So yeah, she wasn't the saint of a woman who stepped in when my mom couldn't to me. I don't blame Jessica for choosing to be adopted now. I'm angry at her belief that she should get any money from my grandparents, despite never showing an interest in having a relationship with them once she was 18 plus. They reached out numerous times, but she never bothered, yet has the belief that she's entitled to their money? That is what ticked me off. My mom had a sister who also had kids. I'm not getting the full $250,000. No, I don't expect anyone from Lucy's side to leave me anything, nor would I demand Jessica to share. It would be completely hypocritical. Not the a-hole. Interesting how she only wants to be family now money is involved. She hadn't even spoken to them in 2 years. Given her age at her adoption, and how many years passed prior to her grandparents' death, and the explicit wording of legal grandchildren, I have no doubt that this was crafted after she was adopted, and was very specifically worded as such. Your grandparents knew what they were doing, and where they wanted the money to go. The last time the will was updated/altered was back in 2017. Will you be in Lucy's family's will? If not, will your sister give you part of her portion? Somehow, I think the answer to both questions is no. She can wait till she gets her own inheritance. Not the a-hole. I don't expect to be, nor will I raise a fuss if I'm not. It's honestly disgustingly hypocritical to me. I honestly doubt that Jessica would share anything that she inherits from Lucy's family with me. So there's your answer. Do you expect to inherit from your father or paternal grandparents? Nope. I said goodbye to all that when I went no contact and changed my surname. Am I the a-hole for telling my half-sister she was never entitled to anything my dad owned? My dad died when I was 6. He wrote out a will where he left instructions of what he wanted me to have after he was gone. A keychain my grandparents bought him that he had for more than 20 years. His dog tags from his time in the military. This bracelet that he got when he became my dad. A little bobblehead toy for his brother who died in the military, a lighter that has been passed down through multiple generations of his family, and an old school pocket watch also handed down through the family. My mom remarried after Dad died. My half-sister is now 8 and my half-brother is 5. My mom, however, decided she was not going to honor my dad's wishes. I have his dog tags, but she gave my half-sister the keychain, and she wants to give my half-brother the lighter and a pocket watch. I begged Mom not to. But my half-sister has the keychain now and she was so happy. I told her I didn't like that she had it, and I would like it back because it was my dad's. She ignored me and said we shared, and she was so happy I shared part of my dad with her. I told her that wasn't my choice. Mom told me I had a nasty attitude about it, and the last couple of years have been intense. My half-sister keeps showing off the keychain and talking proudly about how I shared it with her. Then she lost it once, and I told my mom she was evil for giving it away, when it was so easily lost by my half-sister. My half-sister was really annoying last week and kept bringing up the keychain and the fact it was my dad's and I share it with her. I told her I didn't. She told me of course I did, because she has it. I told her I never shared it, that I never would have shared it with her nor my half-brother, because they are not my dad's kids, and he would not have wanted them to have it. She told me it should be hers because we're sisters. I got so mad. I told her she was never entitled to anything my dad owned, and having that didn't mean I wanted to be her sister, and that Mom was an a-hole for giving it to her. She started crying and said we're sisters, and we should share stuff like that, and I shared my dad with her. Mom was furious with me and called me a bully, and I told her I didn't care. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not a-hole at all. Can you talk to your paternal grandparents? If this was legit in a will, then someone should get you a freaking lawyer. They both have Alzheimer's, so they can't help me. Do you live near a law school? Most have clinics for people with low incomes. Realistically, you probably can't do a lot till you're an adult, unless they help you get emancipated, but it doesn't hurt to get a consult. Given your mother's theft and a general breakdown of your relationship with her, have you talked to your school counselors? Some are awful, but some may actually be able to point you to resources to assist you with your rights. I have not. Our school counselor is way too deep into the religious stuff. It always makes talking to her awkward and not very useful. I don't know about law schools. I don't think so. Not the a-hole. Steal your stuff back from your siblings. and send all your dad's things to a member of your dad's family for safekeeping until you move out. Make sure you set things up with that relative ahead of time and that they understand to keep it a secret. If you can't do a family member, use a friend. If your mom or half-siblings accuse you of stealing from them, deny it and say they must have lost it again. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to help pay for my child's university fees? It's been one hell of a month, so some things I say might not make sense. I'm 40 male. Recently found out that I have a child who we'll call Jane, 18 female. I wasn't convinced at first, but everything checks out. When she came to me, she told me that she just wanted to get to know her father. I wasn't really interested in a relationship, but felt it would be cruel and unnecessary to deny her this. We talked for a while, and I didn't really say much of it, but it was interesting. So after we talked for a while, I asked about her mother Grace, 40 female, and she gives me her number. I really didn't want to have to call her, but I needed answers. So Grace and I decided to meet up at a local coffee shop. We have some small talk for a while before I ask her why she never told me. Silence. So I ask again. More silence. I asked a third time and she told me that she just didn't want anything to do with me and wanted to get back at me. I point out that all she did deprived the child of a father, and she agrees. I then ask her when did she tell Jane, and she says at age 12. So I get confused, and I'm wondering why she only contacts me now. So I ask her why. Grace says that she was angry that I wasn't present in her life. We talk some more about life before we say goodbye and go our separate ways. I don't ask Jane why she didn't call sooner because she was a hurting teen and that's life. So Jane and I spent the next week bonding. Then she sits down and asks to talk. I say sure and sit down. She then goes on to explain about how difficult her life was living in a single-parent household and how money was always tight. Long story short, she asks me to pay for her university fees. Now, I am well off enough to pay for it without struggle. So I ask to see her grades, and to be truly honest, it's meh. Not bad, but nothing to give a second look. I tell her that I'll think about it, and she says thank you. So here's where I might be the a-hole. I don't want to pay for the fees. Because in reality, she is just a stranger with my DNA, and I feel like Jane might just be using me. I mean, she has had 6 years to form a relationship with me, and is only doing now that she needs something. I just want to wash my hands clean off her and Grace, and move on with my life. I don't want Jane to think I'm her financial lifeline or anything like that. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Added to add some stuff because of the comments. 1. I did a DNA test. It was what she wanted me to do to prove herself. 2. Child support laws are different in my country, in the sense that A. You can't claim and claim child support if you had the option to claim it. B. Child support can't be settled after 18, unless the father knowingly disappeared, and that would take months to process, let alone prove. 3. Jane had the ability to contact me. I don't know how much influence her mother had on her choice, but I do know that I was a dial away. Not the a-hole, but neither is Jane. Grace is a tremendous a-hole to both of you. I do encourage you to seriously consider contributing to Jane's university expenses. Not to say you should or should not contribute, just seriously and honestly consider it. Think about her position, no father in her life, and a mother who won't answer any questions she has for the first 12 years. Then who knows what context Grace gave her when she finally did tell her. I'll bet she never said, I never told your father about you because I wanted to spite him, and I didn't care what effect that had on your childhood, despite that being the truth. Instead, she undoubtedly made you into the bad guy. Jane had no way of knowing better, and you should be sympathetic to that. I don't think you're the a-hole no matter what you decide. Just don't do anything to spite Jane. She's had enough of that already. There is no reason Opie should need to feel sympathetic or be an a-hole for not being sympathetic here. Jane, while yes, is his bio daughter, is really a stranger and only really reaching out for cash. No a-holes here. She is a kid who just met her dad. University is the biggest thing on her mind, and she says dad has funds. So why not ask? I wouldn't if I was her, but I get it. And you're not the a-hole for thinking, this is weird. If it was a year or two from now after y'all have caught up, and so formed a bond, maybe. It also sucks as you didn't get a shot, but may have just gained a daughter. If it was me, I would have said let's reset, and not have this convo now as we are strangers. Let's become familiar, and we can talk way down the road on this topic. But yeah, rock and a hard place for sure. Am I the a-hole for breaking my promise and ruining my kid's relationship with her dad? I, 46 female, have 2 kids, 18 female and 15 male, with my ex-husband, 46 male. We got divorced over 10 years ago after I found out he was cheating and got his mistress pregnant. I was so deeply hurt by this, and it took me a long time to put myself together again. After our divorce was finalized, he got married to his mistress, and they now have 2 daughters, 10 and 7. Despite him being a POS to me, he was and still a great father to our kids. And to not potentially ruin their relationship, I agreed to not tell them about the affair after he begged me to not say anything, that he would tell them when the time is right. We share 50-50 custody, though since they are older, they now decide when they go where and for how long. I've been as civil as I could with the situation for our kids' well-being and put clear boundaries in place. Like there's no way on earth I would babysit their kids. After they asked me once. 2 years after the divorce, I started dating a woman, 43 female, and we're now married. That's when my ex told me it felt like I never loved him, since it turns out I'm into women, even though I told him I'm bi. The kids love her. She shares some interests with both the kids, and we all do our annual Star Wars marathon on winter break. Then back in January, I started to feel like they were pulling away from us. At first, I thought it was nothing, just kids being kids. But then they started to spend less and less time with us and more with their dad. I was a bit jealous, I'll admit, but I was also getting worried because they were just not communicating with me at all. And when they did speak to me, they were just snapping at me or at my wife, rolling their eyes, etc. It was clear they were mad at us. So in mid-April, when my wife was out of the house, I sat them down and asked them what was going on and if they were okay. My daughter got really mad at me and started yelling that she was not okay because I led their dad on, that I lied to him, I hurt him, and how could I be such a monster to play with a good man's heart, and she stormed off to her room. I was really confused, so I asked my son, who was quiet, what her sister meant. He said her dad told them that we got divorced after I came out, and that I told him marrying him was the biggest mistake of my life. He started crying and asking why would I do and say such things, and that I didn't just hurt their father, but them and our family. Needless to say, I was furious. I told him to come with me. We went to his sister's room. I knocked on her door and begged her to let me in and let me say something, and she eventually opened the door. We sat on her bed and told them that what their father said was not true. She tried to argue, but I stopped her and asked her to let me talk. I asked them to think a bit and do some math regarding their sister's birthday. They didn't get it, so I asked them her birth date. They tell me, and I tell them that 6 months prior we were in Disneyland, having the time of our lives. They said they remember, so I asked them when did their father moved out. It was about a month after that trip. And when was their sister born? About 5 months after. They started to get it, and my daughter asked me if I'm implying their father cheated on me, and I said yes. She then grabbed her phone and called her aunt, ex's sister, and asked her if it was true that her dad cheated on me. She had to beg her for an answer, and her aunt finally said yes. She then called other family members to confirm. They both apologized to me and to my wife when she came home for how they have been treating us. Then went to their dads the following day and called us to ask if they could move all the things they have there to our house. Soon, I had my ex on my door yelling that I broke my promise and that I sabotaged his relationship with our kids. He didn't leave until I called the police. Our kids have since went low contact with him and his wife. They only go over there to pick up their sisters to hang out with them. My daughter disinvited them from her graduation. My son is no longer going to the boys' camping trip with his dad, uncles, and cousins. I've been getting texts and calls and voicemails from him and his family, calling me an a-hole for ruining their relationship. And I've been starting to feel guilty because he is a good dad, and I did broke my promise. My wife says he crossed the line first. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I realized I'm bi when I started having feelings for my now wife, 2 years after the divorce. Prior to that, I thought I was straight. My daughter has been sulking about not seeing something that was right in front of her. She said she had no reason to question anything because her dad and I seemed okay with each other. I asked them if they wanted to go to therapy. My daughter said that she would like to start in the fall, once she's in her dorm. My son just wants to be left alone with us for a while. Someone said I should force them to go to counseling and talk to their father. It's like you don't have teenagers. I did tell them that what happened between their father and I is between us, and they can see him if they want. They just don't want to right now. They are mad because of the line. Not a-hole. Your kids are old enough to have figured it out sooner or later. Your ex lied to them first to get the kids on his side. You just corrected his lie. They're old enough to know, old enough to make their decisions about their father, old enough to realize their father has probably lied about other things. Yep, ex decided to fool around and find out. OP not a-hole. As a fellow single mom with an ex that cheated, I've kept my mouth shut. But if my ex ever decides to open his or blame me like the narc that he is, oh boy will that open the can of worms. You don't screw with a parent's relationship and intentionally lie. I'm so mad for you and your kids. Not a-hole. Respond with, I wouldn't have broken my promise if ex didn't lie and tell them that we divorced due to me being bi. I care more about the relationship with my kids than my ex. He made me a villain when he was the villain. I owe them nothing, yet he tried to destroy me. Screw him. Well, I have told my kids I'm bi. My daughter said he told her that I say that now just for cover, and that I'm not into men at all. And that's why he said I led him on and played with his feelings. And his proof is that I've only been with women since the divorce. That's technically true, but I've only been with only one person since then. Not a-hole. He was a good dad until he did what is called parental alienation, where he told your kids lies about how and why you got divorced. He is the one who broke the agreement by trying to alienate your kids from you. Parental alienation is actually a thing in family court. My wife says he crossed the line first. Your wife is right. His own family even verified to your kids that his cheating is what broke up your marriage. Block the flying monkeys and get a restraining order against your ex. It shouldn't be hard, since you have at least one police report on him for harassment. Man, I don't even believe he was that good a dad before. I feel like he got to be the fun dad, and his affair partner picked up the rest with the kids after the divorce. And OP did it before the divorce. Someone who does unnecessary stuff, this serious and dramatic, is not someone who can really ever put their kids, or anyone, before themselves. It's easy to be a great parent when your partners are doing the bulk of the work. I'm also absolutely projecting here. An ex-husband could possibly be a good person to his own kids at least. I have never personally seen that from someone that makes big aggressive lies like this though, and I struggle to believe it's true. Next story. Am I the a-hole here? Husband just accused me of financial infidelity. Husband 33 male and I 33 female have been married for 10 years, together since college. Since starting out, we have made financial security a priority and have been able to achieve that, albeit with some good luck along the way. We both have good jobs, paying close to $200K each. Student loans were paid off within a few years. Both went to state schools with some scholarships, so didn't have a lot of debt to begin with. We live in a house I inherited from my grandmother, so no mortgage, and don't have any credit card debt. We max out our 401ks and currently have 18 months of expenses in our emergency fund and are still adding to it. Our cars are both paid off and should be good for another 5+ years, and we don't have any credit card debt. We manage our finances in a hybrid manner, joint accounts for bills and savings, and separate accounts for our fun money. We each get a pretty generous monthly allotment. The fun money is strictly for our individual expenses, hobbies, clothes, outings with friends, etc., and not for things like date nights, vacations, or larger joint purchases like household appliances and repairs which come out of our joint account. We also agreed that if either of us gets any bonuses or has any side hustle income, those will go into our individual fun money accounts, unless the funds are needed for a larger expense such as a major home repair. In terms of the fun money, my husband is much more of a spender than I am, due to expensive hobbies, in particular golf and collecting sports memorabilia, and he's also more into designer clothes. Which is fine, it's his fun money. On the other hand, my hobbies are a lot less expensive, running/working out, reading and baking. In general, I'm more introverted, and a great time for me is tea with a friend at one of our homes with homemade pastries. I have also been getting back into gaming lately, after setting it aside for much of the past decade while building my career. So, after realizing I had more than enough in my fun money account, I decided to overhaul my gaming setup and got myself a new PC, desk, and gaming chair. Total cost about $5,000. However, upon hearing about my purchase, my husband is furious. He says he had no idea I had saved so much money and that I should have consulted him before spending $5,000. I asked what difference it made if it was my own accrued fund money and not our joint funds. And he insisted that my accumulating this amount without telling him was a form of financial infidelity. He says he lost trust in me and doesn't know what else I might be hiding. He is now demanding that I return the items I purchased and deposit most of the funds to our joint account. Then wants to make a new rule that fund money accounts can't accumulate more than $2,000 and that any excess goes back to the joint account. A rule that would obviously favor him as a person who spends most of his allotment each month instead of saving up for anything bigger. I feel like I'm being punished for being more of a day-to-day saver than spender. It wouldn't occur to me to demand to know how much my husband has in his fund money account or to try to micromanage what he spends it on. I wasn't hiding anything deliberately. He never asked about it until after I made the purchases. Still, maybe I should have been more transparent about my plans. So, am I the a-hole? Miscellaneous info. Husband and I each have our own office/hobby room in the house, so it's not like the gaming setup was going in a space he uses. I don't usually game when my husband is home, unless he's already busy doing something else. My biggest block of gaming time is typically when he's off playing golf. Also, I run 40 to 50 miles a week, so it's not like I am generally sedentary. I can't think of a good reason why he would object to me gaming or having a nice gaming setup in my own space in the house. Not a-hole. This isn't a money issue, it's a control issue. Seems like you've spooked him by showing you can quietly amass funds out of sight. You are making a good income and have few expenses, so $5K should not be that big a deal regardless of the circumstance. The only reason it is because your spouse thinks he should have a say in your spending. Read freedom. I'm not saying this is abusive behavior. It could be something else, but this is a thing abusers do. Better to nip it in the bud. Do not agree to the new $2K limit. Push back. The only reason it is because your spouse thinks he should have a say in your spending. Read freedom. Bingo. Came here to find this. OP, money generally means freedom. Freedom to do as you wish. Your husband finding out how you can save such a large amount of money very likely frightens him. He now has verifiable proof that he's been denying to himself, mind you, that you don't need him. If you want to say, "Alright, I'm out. Get out of my house, my grandmother left me," he can't say no to that. Opie's got a hand here, and her controlling husband doesn't like it. The fact she has the house should have been enough for him to realize she doesn't need him. My money would have been on. He cannot manage his money without guidance, and is jealous that his wife can afford nice things that he can't. It's funny that he's accusing you of financial infidelity when he is trying to manipulate you into handing over money you saved. This is a naked money grab, not a-hole. Yes, it does feel like he's trying to change the rules and make me feel guilty about not spending all my extra money right away. Honestly, this is one of the main reasons I thought separate discretionary accounts was a good idea. Ironically, I thought it would prevent arguments like this about what we should be spending or saving. Last story. Am I the a-hole for calling my wife petty for not letting me back in the delivery room? So for 3 generations of our family, we have had somebody carry on the name of my great-grandfather. However, despite the fact my dad, uncle, and aunts having 3 boys and 2 girls between them all, so far, all of us have either been suffering with fertility issues or have only had daughters. Don't get me wrong, my wife and I already have a daughter and I love her very much. However, given that the other relatives are either planning to adopt daughters from parents who could not raise them, committing to being child-free, or saying they are happy with 3 girls they have, I felt a lot of pressure on me to be the one that has a son. So much pressure that when we found out my wife was carrying twins, we saw it as a blessing from my higher spirit. However, given our finances, I'm a firefighter and my wife is a CNA for a nursing home, the one child and done would have been better for us. We contemplated stopping, but my great uncle, who is obsessed about how many kids people have, was all like, well, Nelson Peltz had 10 kids. More kids make you find ways of making more money. And other relatives chiming in saying people with more kids make more money. We were so nervous about the gender that we did not want to know until birth. But that did not stop relatives from coming in with a bunch of old wives' tales saying based on my wife's symptoms that the babies were the same gender for sure. So flash forward to the day of the birth. The first baby was born Sunday at 11:20 a.m. I hear the baby crying and then silence from the previously chatty relatives. Finally, somebody, I forgot who, tell me it's a healthy girl and I should be proud. I was so upset because of the relatives put in my mind that if the first one was a girl, the second one would be too. And I hate to say it, but I was having stress over adding twins to the house. I made excuses and walked out. Went out to the car and cried, and then drove to the nearby cafe to get a coffee to calm myself down. But before I got there, I got a call from my mom saying I had a son. I turned around the car and sped back to the hospital. However, when I got to my wife's room, a nurse came out and said in a rather smug tone, "Sir, your wife is asking that you not be admitted inside." I tried to tell her that I wanted to be with my wife, but she gave me a "you don't scare me" type eye roll. My wife banned me from her room for the next day, and finally this morning she said I could hold my twins. She pointedly made me acknowledge our daughter first, as if a baby understands English, and then let me hold my son. I could not stand it anymore and told her that throwing a grouchy nurse on me and then what she did just then was petty, and I cannot believe her. She got mad and said that she was naming our son the name I wanted, and then threw me out again. Am I the a-hole for going away to collect my emotions and feeling I'm entitled to my kids? Now for the comments. If this is real, you're the a-hole for so many reasons. Financially, you said you would be better off with just the one child you already had, yet you chose to bow to pressure from family to try and have a boy. And what makes you the biggest a-hole of all is walking out on your wife at a critical moment when you thought the second twin would be a girl. What concerns me most is how you will now treat those children. I'm sure your girls will not even realize they have a father. Not to mention, Opie, you know that it's your sperm that determines boy or girl, right? And unless you go through medical procedures to conceive, you can't just try for a specific sex. Take a middle school biology class and grow up. You're the a-hole. I find it hard to believe you don't realize that. Your wife is giving birth, and you have a breakdown because it's a girl? Your wife is doing through childbirth, and all you care about is her family name and gender. I swear, if I were her, I wouldn't let you near the children, and I would name the boy something different. If this crap name is stressing you out, then don't put that pressure on the next generation. Again, you're a massive a-hole.